We're live.
I think we're live and I think we're recording, yes. I think that's good.
What does the stream look like?
Right now it's just us. It's our
Okay.
faces. It's just it's our videos windows.
Okay. Should we introduce ourselves?
Yeah, probably. I want to see if can we even find ourselves and then yeah, it says live. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, we're live.
Perfect. All right. Yeah.
I doubt anyone's gonna find us
Oh yeah,
on
no.
this,
Yeah.
but random people might trickle in. But
Let's
I'm
invite.
managing the chat in case someone does. All right. So
Cool.
this
Let's
is
do it.
awkward. I
So
don't know how to start.
no,
Okay.
so this is good. So designLine. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Maddie and Trent. Let's
I'm
go ahead and
Maddie.
yeah, I'm trying. Are we just gonna do an introduction? We can cut together stuff later too, so it's fine. We'll
Yeah.
yeah, so it's all good.
Okay. Well, what do you do, Trent?
So I'm a product design director. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I should have been prepared for something like this. What we're gonna talk about with that.
I'm a senior product designer at a digital signage company, and I manage their apps and website and stuff.
Yeah,
And I started working when Trent hired me, like 5 years ago, right? Is that how long it was?
it's been longer than that.
Yeah. Oh shit. Yeah. It's been like 7 years.
Yeah,
And I started as a graphic designer, and then I went into UX design, and then slowly started learning UX or UI to UX, and then more into product stuff in the recently.
yeah, that's cool. Do you start off as a do you say graphic designer or visual designer?
I went to school for graphic design, but
What?
that is visual design, so
Yeah, is there a difference?
I don't know.
Interesting.
That was my degree.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it might just
BFA
be the
in design.
nice. Okay, cool. Yeah,
What
I
did
mean,
you get a degree?
yeah, visual communication design was the official title.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And so that's where I was wondering. I mean, I assume that they're the same thing, maybe slightly different.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just names change over time.
Hmm.
But
And
yes.
how long have you been doing product stuff?
Oh yeah. Um, so let's see. It's been over 10 years now doing actual like design type things. And I always did like things before that too, though. In terms of just randomly different websites, building different things for different purposes, just different branding stuff, although it wasn't anything official. And, I didn't have a degree for it then. I got the degree specifically to go into user experience design because I knew that that's what I was wanting.
How did you find user experience design?
That was my brother's brother-in-law was doing it. And so this is way back. I mean, terms were kind of new and stuff, but he had gone to somewhere, he's in Seattle area. And so it's Tech Hub in that scene and all that. Went to a good college for stuff like that too. Human computer interaction type of
Oh
degree.
wow.
Yeah. So
Human computer interaction.
yeah. So I
That
mean,
sounds
HCI.
fancy.
Yeah, it was like one of the original degrees you could
Yeah,
get that was related to this at least. But so he did
that's funny.
that. Told me about it. I was like, oh yeah, that's good. So
Cool.
yeah, what was it
Um,
that turned you onto it?
um, I always liked visual art and everything, but I was definitely more drawn to design versus just like expressive art because I like things that are more utilitarian and useful. And that's why I went into graphic design, but then I realized that they don't make hardly any money and I wanted to make money. And I took a web design class and I was like, this is really fun. And I looked it up and it's like you can make way more money doing web design. So I went and like kind of tailored my portfolio towards web design, which was like just UI at the time, I guess. And once I started working with you and you were teaching me more UX stuff, I was like, this is definitely more utilitarian, like useful art. And I liked that part of it.
Yeah, actually, I forgot about that part because would you have
Hmm.
even applied for the job if it wasn't UI?
No,
Because that's the
because
only.
I don't think I would have gotten it because I didn't know anything UX. I only knew UI stuff.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Because I
Yeah.
wasn't even wanting a UI designer. That was the title that was given to me to be able to hire. So it's so funny how that works out.
Yeah, because you can pay them less.
Well, yeah, but it was my boss got it in his head from somebody that that's what was needed. Somebody said that's what it was. This like just proposed, hey, we need this, and he's like, oh, all right, UI designer, that's what we need. It's like that's not,
Oh,
yeah,
that's so funny. I'm
yeah,
glad that I did it though, because
yeah,
I really didn't know anything about UX at all.
yeah.
And I think you were like, "Well, you can just do, you know, some design work for me, I guess." I was like, "Okay." But we got along pretty quickly from the
Yeah,
beginning, and I think like are we both like thinking through problems, so that helped. That's kind of like what product design is. I guess we should explain. So UX is user experience and UI is user interface. So part of the user experience is the user interface in a like a website or an app or anything like that, but you can be a UI designer and just design the front end and not really think about the whole experience. Does that sound right?
yeah, for sure. And I'd say like product design because that gets dropped too. That's going to add in at least another layer. And this is also
Hmm.
different people will define things differently, but with product design, I definitely add in the business aspect. It's thinking the fuller strategy. It's not just the user's experience. It's also
Yeah.
where does the value come from, and yeah,
What is the what is the company trying to do
mm-hmm.
with their product? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah,
that's what I do now.
yeah. So it's so funny that like that would not have even been a thing, or I mean, it may have, but like just the way that it worked out. That it's
Yeah.
I wasn't, and I wouldn't have hired you if I didn't think that you were capable of UX also, and like getting into that also.
Yeah.
Like that's I have a tough time, for what I needed too. It wasn't even UI. It was a UX
I
designer.
had
So
no experience.
yeah,
I'm actually surprised you hired me because I thought you were just looking for a UX designer and I had good visual design and so you were like, "Oh, okay, yeah,
no,
that'll work."
you
Yeah.
you had portfolio pieces that showed like some actual thought in the information
Yeah.
architecture and things like that, and that's all super important.
Yeah, now
So
that I look back on it, it's really hard to do UI without thinking of the UX
because it's pointless.
unless you have someone just telling you what to do, I guess. But yeah, it is
Yeah, it
pointless
doesn't
if
mean
you're not
anything.
thinking about the experience. Yeah.
It's actually, so I'm just not thinking about this. That's like AI generation when you don't have a real purpose, and so your
Yeah.
prompt is just kind of whatever, and it outputs just kind of whatever. I mean,
Mhm.
there's no feeling behind it either, especially when it's
Yeah.
like that's not really there wasn't a reason I needed this, so I don't know. It's yeah, you have
Oh
to know
yeah,
what.
that's why you AI won't take our jobs soon because thinking of the problem and putting in the prompt is actually the hardest part,
Yeah, and I mean
like
knowing what you
defining
need
it.
out of it,
Yeah.
right? Because I mean that goes in the definition, but yeah, it's if you don't know what you
Mhm.
need out of it, you can create whatever, but if there's not gonna be value out of it, and again going back to that product design thing, it's like yeah, even user experience design. I mean, there's a lot of that AI is not gonna have a problem. We get used to patterns, right? We'll have established
Mhm.
patterns. Like AI is not gonna have a problem applying a lot of those patterns once it knows what it needs to do. And so again,
Right.
it goes back to the
Yeah. I actually use AI to check my work kind of. I think I told you about it.
yeah. How do you go about
Like
doing that?
I have a problem to solve, say something simple for an example, like sorting multiple locations into different um sorting multiple devices into different locations or something and like trying to come up with the best user experience to do that. And I'll come up with my design and then say it's like a drag and drop, like sorting into different locations. And then I'll ask AI, as a user experience designer, how would be the best way to design multi-device location sorting or whatever. I'll put in like what I the problem is, and then it can't generate images like designs like that, but it can like explain it to you. And so I will like read through it, and in this case it was saying you should create tags for the devices to quickly sort them and or whatever. And I'm like, great, that's what I did. And I just kind of use it to check what I've already done. Sometimes I do it beforehand, but it's harder to explain the problem if you haven't thought about it enough. And usually when you're designing it, you think about the problem a little more. And yeah, it's I've been thinking about this too. This is an interesting thought I had. Um Front end obviously is like just displaying the code in a way that users can interact with it where you don't have to know how to code or anything. And since I am kind of into like the occult and witchcraft, there was like alchemists, right, that thought of this concept and were like, the world is just an interface, but there is a source code to everything around us, and they wanted to like hack it by doing alchemy and like going straight to the source code instead of interacting with the UI that someone else designed. And I don't know,
That's super
random
interesting.
thought, but
Yeah.
isn't it?
Um,
And that's kind of like what witchcraft is too. Like they have spells and stuff that is like doing like adding your own code to the whatever. I don't know. Does that make any sense?
yeah, no, that does. I mean, it's.
Yeah, it's fun to think of it that way.
Mhm.
I think. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's. It is interesting because a topic that comes up often, I think, at work is separating the front end from the back end.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's big, similar sort of thing where, yeah, it doesn't have to be. There's ways around stuff. I don't know. Maybe that's not even making sense for what you're saying, but it's like it could be this way, it could be another way completely. And so
Yeah.
we don't have to like whatever the back end is doing, the front end can be very different and can be doing a lot of different things, and we don't have to expose that to people, right? It's like we can show it as a lot of
Mhm.
different stuff and or how we go about it. But again, yeah, you still have to know what that is.
It's yeah, it's interesting to think like, okay, so in the back end, it doesn't actually pull the data in this way, or it doesn't actually work this way. But in the front end, we can design it so it looks that way,
Mm.
because that way
Mm-hmm.
makes more sense to users or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And I think it's probably best practice to have the back end match what the front end does, if that's the best way to do it, because designing the back end is also like a, a thing. But if it doesn't, I don't know. It's hard to explain these things without having real examples, but
Oh
like
yeah.
I work with, I work with the devs all the time, and I'm just like, this hierarchy doesn't make any sense to me. Like, what the hell are you talking about? And they're like, well, it's not actually a hierarchy. Like, well, we need to display it in a hierarchy so that the user can like work their way down to it. And so
Mm-hmm.
I have to design it. I have to make the front end look different than it actually works in the back end.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Well,
Right? Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. One example I was thinking about is you can. No, that's not a good example. I was gonna say you can tell somebody like let's say for an ordering thing, you're gonna order something online, and there's like days shipping. It's gonna be like 5 to 8 days shipping and stuff, right?
Hmm.
The back end could do a lot of different things because it could actually go and like pull a date and do all that stuff and things. But like you could just have the front end instead of saying the date or whatever, it can be different because you could do the calculation. So take
Hmm.
from today's date plus the the range or whatever, and then you can display the range or look at the calculator or a calendar, and then say what days it's actually going to be and stuff. And so there's a lot of things you can set up and do for that for the front end. That's all different.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very interesting. But
I
then,
think about that all the time though. I'm like, what, like, because I was never interested in learning about the code or the back end or how things actually work. I'm like, I don't care. I just need it to work for the user. But now I'm like way more into it and like how it works. And I think it's because I have good devs that actually know how to explain things to me. And I explain things to them. And I have to actually because they are so curious about why I'm designing things a certain way. And they have a hard time understanding that the front end doesn't need to like work exactly the same way as the back end does. And so we both, I feel like, are learning a ton about each other's disciplines, and that's been cool.
yeah, no, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then the alchemy thing, it's like getting down to like what is it that allows us to do or have certain different things. So I'm gonna relate this to a thing really quick. I think
Okay.
as an intro. So the alchemy is working on identifying like base components, base elements, right? In my
Hmm.
limited understanding, this is I'm trying to talk through this go and they can make those do different stuff with them to then create other things, right? Was it just about materials, or was it actually about other like making
Yeah,
things
they,
happen?
they they kind of mistakenly thought that like if you could get down to like the atoms or the particles of any element, you could change it into gold or whatever else you wanted. Which isn't exactly how the science works, but it's an interesting idea, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So okay, well that's not going to relate super well, but the I don't know the fundamentals of things, like getting down to it. So there's this. Actually, no. I'm gonna switch topics
Okay.
before I get into that because I was gonna go into this whole thing about the gap and like learning about stuff and just kind of like breaking things down and all that. But first, I'd be really curious. What is it that like we're doing this thing? Just talking about like what do we want to do? Like why are we here? Like what are we wanting to do from this? Like what is it
From
that?
this.
Yeah.
So I liked what you wrote. It was like design a better life type of thing. You can apply design principles to any problems in your life and think through them enough to have your life work by design. Like shit isn't just happening to you. You're kind of designing it out and planning your life and optimizing it. So I like that. I feel like we could help people think through problems that aren't just related to, digital products or anything, but like any problem. Like how do I deal with an annoying coworker? How do I lose weight? How do I organize my house? Stuff like that.
Yeah, and I like that. So just from our conversations anyway, and obviously that I think why we like doing this or wanted to do this is just like so much relates back to what we're doing with design anyway, because so much
Yep.
of it is like identifying what's actually going on, thinking about what your goals are in a thing, and then finding ways to have things match up between that, right? Um, and that relates just so much to all the other just like life in general and things. And so yeah, I think it's really interesting having these types of conversations and stuff. And so from that, I'm going to go back into this whole thing with the gap and like learning and things. So I'm curious, how is it that do you know, like, do you have styles or ways that you like to learn, like specific things?
I've noticed that I have um like periods of learning. Like there's this period where I just absorb and I don't really say a lot. I'm just trying to take everything in. And I probably seem quiet or grumpy when people are telling me things, but I'm really just like listening and I don't have any thoughts about it yet. And then I have this period where I'm like trying to piece together everything and I'm like, what the hell does it all mean? And then I'm like frustrated a little bit because I have all the pieces, but I haven't quite like put them together yet. And that takes a while sometimes, putting together the pieces, like especially when I'm trying to solve a problem. and I know all of these things, but I don't know exactly what I'm trying to do yet. And then eventually it's like something clicks and then it all makes sense. But it takes a while sometimes depending on what the topic is.
When did you do you know like when you started thinking about how you learn or getting into that learning or like so being able to answer that question, I'm curious how you know those things.
Mm, I think really started to think about it with work, with this new job I have because I'm the only product designer, and I came into this new company just like I don't know what's the word where they just like drop you in and you're just like
Sink or swim.
drowning. Yeah, sink or swim. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And they were like, "Here's everything about our company. We have problems. Figure them out." And I was like, "Shit, this is so much to learn." And there was just like, there was the learning, the like intake period, and I don't know if I think I learned that from you. It's like don't try to start with solving everything. Just learn everything first. Don't try to solve the first problem you see. You because it may if you solve that problem, it may cause another problem if you don't know the whole picture. So I was trying to learn everything about the company first so that I could identify the most important problems and how they're related to each other. And I don't think that was like something I naturally did. I think I learned that from being, a UX designer and a product designer. So, um, but I don't know. I think that I realized that I have like this incubation period when I would get really frustrated that I couldn't figure something out. And then I would just give myself a day not to even think about it. And then I would have like a solution within the next couple days.
Hmm.
And so I realized that I needed to just chill out and give myself some grace when I couldn't figure something out. Like right now I have something at work that is confusing me a lot and I'm just like I'm just going to take a break from it and then I don't know. I'll figure it out eventually, and I think writing it out and diagramming stuff helps me a lot cuz I'm visual and like I don't know what the word is, like auditory. I like to talk about it a lot. And so I know that this hump you have to get over. And I think we were going to talk about that anyway, but there's like this part where you're just like I know that I don't know anything and it's frustrating. And then eventually you're like, okay, maybe I do know more than I thought or whatever, but you have to I think sleeping on it really does help.
Yeah. I think it, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, definitely. It's interesting when you talk about sleeping on it because I don't typically think about that as part of the learning process. But there's got to be something that happens subconsciously when you're, just like giving it time, just like
Yeah.
some part of your brain that's like thinking things over because it does happen that way all the time too. And
Yeah.
it's just,
I've talked about it with my coworkers and they'll be like, "I was up so late trying to figure this out and then I finally went to sleep and I like figured out in the morning." I'm like, "Yeah. You do work in your brain when you're sleeping and you're dreaming.
oh yeah, for
Pretty
sure.
crazy."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're talking about like the hump, like the like spot where it's like very frustrating and all that.
Mhm.
So, I mean, this probably comes up often enough anyway, just kind of periodically. But the Dunning-Kruger effect, I
Mhm.
basically it's a study that was done back. I'm not going to know the years, but they were doing like college students and like the college students. It was something about those who thought that they knew more about the material. Anyway, I don't know. I thought I was gonna like be able to just rattle that off, and now I'm not going to. But essentially,
Maybe you need
those
to read it
with
out.
those with high knowledge on a subject tend to think that they don't know as much as they actually do, and those who don't
Yeah.
know as much tend to
Think they know more than they
yeah be
do.
overconfident in what they actually do know and stuff. And
What's it
so
called again?
Dunning Kruger,
Dunning Dunning-Kruger effect.
yeah.
A cognitive bias that occurs when people overestimate their abilities in a particular area despite having limited knowledge in that skill. This can lead to poor decision making, mistrust, and potentially dangerous work conditions.
Yeah, and so like this whole thing where everybody starts off with everything. I mean, because just think about, we're babies, we're born,
Hmm.
right? So we're going to experience first things for the first time for anything that we're doing, right? And so especially learning something, it's going to be expected that
Right.
you don't know anything about it. But at some point, you're probably going to get to where it's like, oh, I've learned about this thing. I know so much about it. I know like all this stuff. You know what I mean? It's like this whole
Yeah.
anyway. And so, but then you dig into it, you go further in, and then you realize, oh, there's actually way more that I did not realize that is part of this that's just there. Um,
Hmm.
and so that relates back to this video that I was. Oh, here it is. Yeah. I don't know if I can actually pull this up and share it, so I'm just gonna get that link.
You should be able to share on the Twitch stream. Or, yeah, no, the Discord. You can share your screen on the Discord, and then that should
Oh,
show it
yeah, there we
since
go.
you're streaming it.
So yeah, okay, that'll work. So
We have one viewer, by the way, I think.
nice.
It's my friend Rev. He's a,
Cool.
what are you again, Rev? He's like a coder.
Like,
Okay, I think I'm getting. Oh, there we go. Go. Oh, it's like being hidden. Now I'm like live on Discord too, I think. So I don't even know if
Yes,
that's how I'm supposed to do that.
it's fine.
Okay.
We are experiencing the part where we don't know anything
Yeah, that's what
of
this
this
is for.
Dunning-Kruger effect. And we know we don't know anything,
Exactly. Okay,
but we're
so if
doing our best.
I play this, are you able to hear this, and will that pick it up then?
like one of the things I think that it's really hard that nobody ever tells you if you
Does that sound okay, Rev? Yes, software engineering student, software dev intern.
Oh, nice.
I think it sounds okay. It's loud. Oh, can you turn down the YouTube?
want to do creative work, is how hard it is to actually find a decent story. And I think that we all think like, well, the real work of it is I'm going to go out and I'm going to shoot the thing and then I'm going to sit and edit it and I'm going to
Oh,
write
that
it.
wasn't even it. Hold on. It's the gap. Sorry. What is this one?
Turn it up a little bit. Okay, turn it down. Does that sound alright?
Nobody tells people who are beginners, and I really wish somebody had told this to me, is that all of us who do creative work, like, we get into it, and we get into it because we have good taste. But it's like there's a gap that for the first couple of years that you're making stuff, what you're making isn't so good, okay? It's not that great. It's trying to be good. It has ambition to be good, but it's not quite that good. But your taste, the thing that got you into the game, your taste is still killer. And your taste is good enough that you can tell that what you're making is kind of a disappointment to you. You know what I mean? A lot of people never get past that phase. A lot of people at that point, they quit. And the thing I would just like say to you with all my heart is that most everybody I know who does interesting creative work, they went through a phase of years where they had really good taste. They could tell what they were making wasn't as good as they wanted it to be. They knew it felt short. It didn't have this special thing that we wanted it to have. And the thing I would say to you is everybody goes through that. And for you to go through it, if you're going through it right now, if you're just getting out of that phase, you got to know it's totally normal. And the most important possible thing you could do is do a lot of work. Do a huge volume of work. Put yourself on a deadline so that every week or every month you know you're going to finish one story. Because it's only by actually going through a volume of work that you're actually going to catch up and close that gap. And the work you're making will be as good as your ambitions. It takes a while. It's going to take you a while. It's normal to take a while, and you just have to fight your way through that. Okay?
Yep. I've gotten so much better as a designer from just working a lot and being the only designer at my new job.
Yeah, I've heard there's this Chris Do, the future he's designer agency. Anyway, he's all over YouTube and stuff. Um,
Mhm.
he he talked about this thing where if you have a whole bunch of students, split them down the middle, give half of them one masterpiece assignment. So it's like the whole term, all you're going to do is this one final masterpiece project, right? And then the other half, give them you don't have a master, like all you have is every single day you have to create one thing, right? And so at the end of it, they all come back and it's like, guess who has the actual masterpieces out of that whole group? And it's
Mhm.
like guaranteed. It's yeah. It's this video's like off now. Let's see.
Yeah, it is about quantity
Yeah, definitely.
over quality, especially when you're learning because how can you be expected to like make one thing better? I don't know. It's like if you were just working on one painting. Like that thing's actually just gonna get worse the more you put shit on it. I don't know. It's
Mm-hmm.
better to just make a bunch of versions of even the same painting. You'll get better every time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's so relating it back to the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? Well, there's a whole bunch of things that you have to learn about. So you might actually think that like, well, I'm just going to create this interface, or I'm just going to create this painting, or I'm going to create a developed, I'm going to create this application, right? But it's
Hmm.
what you don't understand is typically when people are getting into this stuff, all the extra details that they aren't aware of, right? So it's with a painting, well, it's about shapes, it's about color theory, how colors even mix together. It's about textures. It's about strokes. So like your
Hmm.
lines and how you're doing that, and breaking those down, you can break down into a whole bunch of other more components, right? Code for a good application. Well, you're going to need like user management. You're going to have like all these other things that you're probably not really thinking about right away that need to be built for this thing. But that doesn't even get into well, what's your setup for your code? Like, are you setting yourself up systematically so that you can be scalable with this in the future, or is it kind of going to be like this spaghetti strung out thing that's. And so all these things,
Yep.
right? But it's all these extra details that we just don't really understand or part of it. And so once we get into it, but doing the small things every day or actually work on the stuff. And so a lot of this does come down to just do it. Just start working
Yep.
on stuff and just start doing stuff and don't worry about everything's learning. So don't worry that it's not good. Like it doesn't matter
Yep.
because
That's why we decided to go live today,
exactly. Yes.
even though we don't know what we're doing yet.
Yeah.
Oh, we have 4 viewers actually. Hi guys.
Nice.
This
Hey.
is our first stream ever. We don't know what we're doing, but we're having fun. We know we're at the point where we know that we don't know a lot. But again, the only way that you realize that you don't know something is to do it and then look at it, back at it with your taste that you've developed. You have good taste, but you don't know what you're doing. You look back at that thing and you're like, "Oh, that looks like shit." You know? I'm going to redo it and account for that little piece. Like the next time we stream, we'll probably be like, "Oh, our audio was off. We're going to fix that." And then the next time we'll have even more knowledge and be like, "Oh, our chat wasn't set up. We're going to fix that." And every time we're going to get better,
Yeah, for sure.
right?
Yeah, it's bit by bit. And it's also like, and that's the thing is like, it's okay. You just keep doing the thing you want to do, right? Don't worry about,
Yes.
yeah.
Starting is the hardest part, especially when you have good taste because you know you're not good enough. Like you know that yours doesn't look professional or, your code is messy, whatever. Like you know that you're not good enough. So you don't want to say anything. You don't want to display it. You don't want to show people because you're scared, but you don't know how to make it better yet. But again, the only way to make it better is to put it out there and then try again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. It's just do
I
it.
even just like so I've worked at my new job like a year and I look back at like the designs I made when I first started and I'm like, holy crap, these are messy as hell. Like even in just 1 year, I've gotten just so much better at just using Figma alone. And I don't know. And I feel like I've gotten better at talking to my product owner, the CEO guy, I've gotten better at like convincing him how to proceed in the business. And a year ago, it would have taken me like 5 meetings to do what I can do in one meeting now,
Nice.
which is awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Yeah, that's a great
Plus, you
skill.
build trust. Yeah.
Hmm. And like, I mean, a lot of this is just like doing it too, right? Because it's like, I don't think you're probably very comfortable going into this when you're doing it, right?
No.
I
The
mean,
first time you do something, it's always uncomfortable, right?
yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
I
that's
was
good.
so nervous starting my new job because I thought that I was like, I had imposter syndrome, probably. Because there was a part of me that like knew that I knew a lot more than like an average person, but that I was kind of still faking it. I don't know. So I was so nervous because I was going to be alone. I was going to be the only designer as well. And I was like, I don't have like Trent to like lean on. I mean, I could have asked you and stuff, but I'm really glad I did it because again, I got so much better.
Yeah, and again, it just goes back to just doing it, right? It's just like you're nervous, but just do
Hmm.
it anyway. It's fine. It'll be all right.
Yeah.
It'll be all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's cool.
Speaking of which, I feel like you have kind of an echo.
Sorry, I'm gonna
Is it
work
just
on that.
me?
No, probably not. I've got a very echoey room, so we just put up walls to close off this dining room area for my office,
Hmm.
and there's like nothing in here. And then yeah,
Oh,
so I'm very sorry.
yeah. It's okay. No, we'll figure it out. It's good enough. That's the nice thing about our technology now, is it doesn't need to be super fancy for it to be good enough.
Yeah, I'll be working on that though. I think I can get it much better though. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I
so
want to
I'm
get a better camera.
curious about like the. I want to talk about the Figma to code export and stuff, but I'm curious if there's any difference between like imposter syndrome between like designer and developer. And I say that because it's there's probably not. I understand that going into it, but I'd be curious how that might manifest itself, just because the designers always seem to be a bit more of a sensitive lot, and so
Sure.
um, the way that I've seen it manifest and stuff, it's yeah. Anyway, I'm curious if there's
Yeah.
any like difference in there.
I don't know because my developers are sensitive. I think it just depends on the person. And yeah, I don't know. Why did you get imposter syndrome, Rev? Like I think for me it was just like being the only product designer. I was so worried that I was just gonna mess everything up because it's like, well, what if the only reason I was good is because of the other people I was working with? And I don't know. I don't know. Like my confidence level is definitely way higher than it was, but sometimes I still feel like, what if everything I'm doing right now is trash and I just don't know? Maybe that's just an irrational fear. Maybe there's a difference, but it's a lot more it's a lot more reassuring when you're working with other designers that are like, "No, this is good. You did good. Don't worry." Versus when you're the only one and you just have to rely on your own opinion to say whether or not it's good, I guess. And and I trust my devs to tell me if something was terrible, but they also don't know enough. They don't know like best practices in UX or whatever. So I'm like, what if I'm missing something? What if I didn't think of something? And I don't know. My boss has told me um certainty over clarity. No, clarity over certainty, sorry. Like we just know what we're doing even though we're not certain of what we're doing. At least we're doing something. And it goes back to, you just have to put something out there and then you'll figure out if it's good or not and you'll get better. But if you never put anything out and you're too scared and you're like worried about making it perfect before you release it, you're never going to release anything and you're never going to get better. And so my boss is always just telling me, and he's the dev lead, and he's like in charge of, my one-on-ones and everything, and he's just like, we're gonna send it, we're gonna do it. It's fine. And that's been really good to have someone like that that's not like a perfectionist, I guess.
That's good. I like it's you've got this whole two sides I would say to it. One is in your position where you're the only designer going into it. You're providing so much value anyway that it's like they can't do that. That's the whole reason why they brought you on and stuff. And so you're already going to be providing a ton of value, and so
Mm,
just ride on that, right? Because that's like a ton of it anyway. And then
yeah.
and you even said it. It's like a lot of people don't even know what all needs to go into the thing, right? And so it's like, so again, all those things that you bring into it that wouldn't have been there otherwise. Yeah, it's a ton of good value and stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That's true. At least there is a product designer. They were
yeah,
doing it without a product designer for so long, and you can tell.
yeah, for sure. And the other side to it though also is like, all right, so if you're not really providing that value, well, can you recognize that? And if you can recognize it, well, so then what is that gap, right? There's obviously that gap there.
Yeah.
So start working on that, right? And it's also not even a problem because you're there, you're doing the thing. So just keep doing it.
How do you recognize when you're not providing value? How do you prove that you are providing value? That's like the trickiest part. And the part that you need to figure out to get over your imposter syndrome, probably.
Yeah, that's
Right?
fair. Yeah. Well, I mean, so I was thinking about this. Okay, so going to those two examples, right? If you're not really providing that value, do you have somebody there that can help you understand what that is? Right? Because at that point, all it is a
Yeah.
matter of, well, there's a gap. Can you recognize the gap? If you can't recognize the gap, we're at such beginning stages of that Dunning-Kruger curve, right? Where it's like you still don't know even enough to know that you don't know enough about this thing, and that's probably just not a very good hire, to be honest. Probably
Fair.
shouldn't hire that person in the first place.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but if they do have somebody that can help them out, well, then everything's learning anyway, right? You're not going to close that gap by not doing. And so keeping
Hmm.
it to yourself, or being afraid to like talk to somebody or even ask somebody, like for help on something, or like how to improve. Like again, there's no way to close that gap otherwise if you're not getting that.
Yeah.
And if you,
That's a huge point. You have to share your work, or
yeah,
else you'll never know if it's good. Like if you hide it, and I did do that in the beginning, like at Overstock, or oh shoot, I probably shouldn't say that. But at our first job we worked at, I would wait until someone asked me to see what I was doing. I wouldn't be actively trying to like seek feedback on stuff because I was scared. Um but that's the only way like I got better, was when other people who had more experience than I did were giving me feedback on it.
and some of that's kind of cultural too. I mean, even that where it's being in
Yeah.
an environment where that's even allowed to be the thing. Anyway, but this all
Yeah,
gets
that
into a lot
people
of other
aren't
topics
checking up
too.
on you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Mhm.
yeah.
Work from home, I think, can be harder in that way too, because you aren't around people that like can just look over and be like, "What are you working on?" So that's been kind of good for me too, to just be able to turn over to the dev and be like, "Hey, does this make sense to you?" you know.
Yeah, it's
But you have to hold yourself accountable, especially if you're the only designer like me. You have to put it in front of users, and you have to get their feedback, and you have to measure.
mhm.
You have to measure your impact. And that is the only way to prove your worth too, is to be like, look, this was before, this is how many, error clicks or users or whatever, and this is after the new design, sorry. Um, and if you don't record that stuff, if you don't like get the, what do you call it, stats, then you're not gonna learn anything.
Oh yeah, I mean, getting into like the whole how to close that gap and stuff, and like yeah, the learning aspect and how you learn, and how like if you don't measure something, you're not gonna know if something's getting
Yep.
changing. You're not gonna be able to track
Yeah.
the change if you don't track the change. Yeah.
It's true for anything, like your, you know, your health. If you're not tracking, like you may be getting healthier, but you feel like you're not because you didn't track where you started or whatever, you know? Or and that's like if you always have imposter syndrome, I would argue that it's better to have imposter syndrome to be overconfident and not actually be as good as you think you are. Um than it is to like think that you're not as good as you actually are. Do you think that's true?
Yeah,
Because I think at that point you stop learning. When you think that you're not as good or you have doubts about your work or you're just like I know that I don't know everything, then you're willing to learn more. But if you're like that confident guy who just is like, I know everything, then you're never going to learn anything and you're not going to know where you actually aren't good because you think you're better than you are.
yeah, very much, very much. That this reminds me though of and sorry, like call it playing devil's advocate if you want or whatever. I don't think that
Hmm.
necessarily is, but it's the other side to that though is like yeah, but also there's this line that needs to be walked between not being overconfident, but still have confidence to just do stuff still,
Yeah.
right? It's like this whole yeah, it's like it doesn't matter. I mean, you even said it though. It doesn't matter if you're wrong. It doesn't matter if it's not gonna be right. Just do it anyway. Just put it out there.
Yeah.
And I'm even trying to relate this back to like even a developer, right? Having this thing where it's like it's not even necessarily like an interface that can be tested as much. It's more about something that will like prove out over time for like a scalability sort of thing, right? Was this coded in a way that was like yeah good scalability so that over time we can not have to go back and refactor as much or something. I don't I think I lost my train of thought though where I was going with that, but uh, yeah. Oh, learning confidence, but having confidence and just it's okay still too though because there's also this whole aspect of things where it's like yeah, but you also don't even need to be all that good with stuff, right? It's like you just have to be good enough and then have
Yeah.
confidence that like you're gonna be just fine, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like so along the way, still having confidence that like no, but like what I'm doing is still good enough
Yep.
because it's like a yeah still feel accomplished even though you recognize the gap sort of thing because you're still doing
Yeah.
things that you weren't able to do before or didn't know how to do before and definitely things that people don't know how to do and all that but
Hmm.
so anyway just think about the confidence aspect to it too though there's
Yeah, you have to be proud for at least doing something. They say that. It's like a motivational quote, like the only way you could fail is if you don't try at all, right?
yeah I like that
So, yeah, it's better to just try and be shitty than it is to not do anything at all.
yeah yeah close that gap
Yeah.
close the yeah the Dunning-Kruger curve
I used to have this gap with working out. Like I used to think if I'm not sweating and if I don't lift this much and if I don't do the workout for this long, you know, it's not worth doing it at all. And so I wouldn't work out at all, like instead of just going to the gym and walking on the treadmill, which would have been better than nothing, right? Because I thought I had to like do this huge workout for it to be effective.
yeah that
Yeah.
especially it's like yeah better to do something small consistently than large and just once in a while.
Mhm.
Yeah, the consistency. I mean, it goes back to like right. It's like don't worry about creating the masterpiece over time. Like
Yeah.
just do every day, and
Yep.
you'll end up with masterpieces.
Totally.
Yeah.
It seems so obvious now, but I feel like when I was younger, it was not.
Oh yeah, no. Yeah,
Right?
no. It's watching kids. Yeah, like if you watch kids try to draw. I mean, some of them are fine. Like some of them, it's. But some kids, they'll get frustrated really easily. It's
Yep.
like, well, it's not. I know that this could be better, and then they get frustrated by it. It's like,
Yep.
don't want to keep doing it. I know it can be better. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I know you. It's fine. Just keep doing it. It doesn't matter.
Like, chill out, little homie. You don't even know how to write yet. Like, it'll be good. Don't worry.
Yeah.
All right.
Let me. Sorry, I figure I'll just pull this up and we'll talk about like Figma to code. Just because there was a question.
Oh, I think he had to leave,
Oh, okay. Well,
but we
do we
can talk
want to
about
do it
it
anyway?
later.
Just because it's something that came up and because
Yeah. Yeah.
we don't have to. How about since he took off anyway, we'll plan on doing that in the future. No, let's just do it. I don't know. We'll just talk about it.
Yeah, because I actually don't even know. I was gonna have to
Okay.
Google that.
Let me set this up then. Okay, can you see this?
Yes.
So I just did the basic action of Googling it. But so the things to know about this though, because there is actually a little bit more to it. Unless they've got more things that, yeah, this is from Moonblow, so it's something else, not even Figma. Okay, the thing to know about the Figma to code export is it doesn't always work all that great. And a lot of what will export is going to be dependent on how you're setting up your files. So there are a lot of these different Anima app. There's Builder.io. There was like a couple others that I'm not surprised they haven't showed up, but that's fine. It doesn't really matter that much. So a lot of these though, and they'll like, it's this whole thing that you can get into. But so much of this is going to be dependent on how you're setting up your actual layers panel. Because if your layers panel is not set up very well, this code that exports is not going to be very semantically laid out. It's
In
going to be all
Figma,
messy. Yeah.
like it has to be laid out right in Figma. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And so, yeah, I haven't looked at these. I think I looked at some of these last time. It was like a couple months ago. This topic actually came up again. Seems to come up periodically. And so we tried an export, tried to do something about it. And anyway, so what I would say then is back to us now, I think. It can work. I'd be really curious if they are doing their own Figma designs. And if they're doing their own Figma designs, be as light touch as possible, and also only do small sections at a time. Like export small chunks of code. Don't try to do like a full-on like page or anything.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
it sounds like he is doing his own design for a senior design project.
okay,
Um,
yeah. So just keep the export small. Like don't try to export much at a time. Is like a main thing, and then also just make sure that like things are laid out in the objects layers panel, objects panel, right?
in the order of how they would show up on the
Don't have
website.
extra groups that you don't need. Have
Oh.
things, think like box model, like lay it out for the box model for the
Mm-hmm.
web, if you're aware of that, right? So HTML, like the structure of the websites, web pages, box model.
Okay.
Um,
And what about auto layout? Does that work when you export code? Because I
so
use that like a ton.
again, that's going to be dependent mostly on how well you have your stuff set up. So if you've added, let's just say they have max widths, max heights and stuff that you can add now. If you've
Oh
added
yeah.
that on a wrong, grouping or frame or something like that, and not on the right, the parent-child relationships that get created with the objects that you're building out, if you don't have that set up properly, then that could go and just mess up your code too. So again, a lot of this comes back to how well is your Figma designs actually set up. Export as small as possible that you can still use. And a lot of it is you still get a lot of code just looking at the inspect, and you can copy and paste out a lot of those things. It's not going to give you the structure, but that's where it depends on what you're looking for. Are you looking for CSS? Are you looking for structure? So HTML, like, I don't think you're going to
That
get any
seems really
JavaScript out.
hard. That
It's
seems like harder than just looking at the designs and writing it yourself.
yeah. I mean, it depends. If you set your files up properly, I think that it can export okay. But it's
Do you think the time trade-off is about the same though? when you're
So
like setting up your
Uh,
Figma
so this
files.
whole thing is like interesting to get into because we're talking about like just tools, right? What tool are you
Yeah.
going to use to get this thing done? You don't need Figma, right? At the end of the day, a developer who can go and code does not need Figma. I mean, they're probably going to need to get their ideas out. They're going to need to get some hierarchy out, some structure, some different things just to understand it before they get into it, for sure.
Hmm.
But that could happen in a lot of different ways. It doesn't have to be Figma. So when you talk about like helping or not helping, well, a lot of this is like, what is it you're trying to do, and then what's good for you. So if a developer is going to get in, do a lot of design, they know, let's just say they do a bunch of freelance work, or going to get a bunch of freelance work, they may want to start designing some of their own stuff, right? And it might be easier to use Figma for a lot of different things. And then a lot of that's like, yeah, it's at that point, you're probably going to be looking to tidy up your process, like what you're doing. But
Hmm.
this goes into like process improvement and things like that. And so it's, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So it could be beneficial. It really could. And it just depends on how they go about it. And they might find that like exporting code for, SVGs, that's probably a big one, right? I mean, because that is code at the end of it, SVGs,
Mm, true.
the scalable vector graphic. So that thing, they might find some really good uses out of it. Again, I don't know that you're going to export, like have a full page designed out and be able to just export that to code. I don't
Yeah,
think
I've
that
heard
happens.
that doesn't work very well, which is why I've never really like looked into it.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard it just sucks, but if you can do little bits at a time, maybe that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've set up components, start small, and then you can start getting bigger and bigger as it like you understand how the exports are kind of building out the code for it. But yeah, start as small as possible. Do it that way.
Okay. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So my work is like looking into hiring more devs, and I told him you should hire another product designer too. So what if something happens to me? Just for that alone, I'm like, what? I don't want all my designs to go to waste or whatever. But they want to hire like another full stack developer, which is all we have right now. But I swear only like one of them actually does front end. And I think the other one does know how to do it, and he's probably decent at it, but he doesn't like to. Like they're full stack, but they don't want to do the full stack. And so I'm like, we should just hire a front end person that can work with me, who I
So
like. But I don't
yeah,
know. I don't know. They're worried
there's
that they'll get done with doing front end stuff and then have nothing for them to do, which is fair because it's not like you're always building front end, but I don't know. I don't know what to do. And the one guy who does do front end but like never actually works on it, he's really hard to work with just because our personalities are super different. But the other guy who does do front end is getting sick of it because he's the only one ever doing it all the time. So he's trying to like, and he's like, I'm gonna lose my back end expertise or whatever else, you know. They do a bunch of stuff, and he's like, I'm gonna lose it if I don't start working on that stuff too.
yeah, that's this whole thing. So this is Brad Frost. Brad Frost is a like look at this, it's beautiful. Um, Web
Ew.
designer from way back in the day. If you've heard of Atomic Design, this is his.
Yep.
So
Okay.
like
Yeah.
he's like OG, but he's like the as far as I understand it, I mean he's a straight up web developer. So like that means like the web design, web development, like front end and all that stuff. So he brings out this thing. I don't know, maybe it's not even his, but front of the front end and back of the front end web development. So typically,
Mhm.
what I end up okay, front of the front end developer determines the look and feel of a button, while the back of the front end developer determines what happens when the button is clicked. In my
Mhm.
experience, what ends up happening is usually developers that say they're full stack and then they do front end are these. They're back of the front end developers that can do the front end, but they're not actually. They don't really care about the button look and feel,
Yeah.
right? And so that ends up being the issue is that it's more about this. Yeah, I can do front end. Like, yeah, of course you can do front end. Like that's not that difficult,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a big difference in doing the front end well, like doing it super like
Will you send that link in the chat?
yeah.
That is so real. And that's kind of why I do want to hire a back of the front end, front of the back end, front of the front end designer, developer, because I think they do want it to look good. They do care a little bit. Everyone cares a little bit. Like everyone's a little bit, I don't know, vain in that way because that's what people see. But it just feels like I would want someone who actually really is like passionate about that. I don't know.
Yeah, so then I'm just gonna do pull up another one really quick, because this is like, oh, I don't know if this is gonna work now. Window, no, hold on, sorry, I have it. This one.
It's black. Oh, okay.
Okay, so I love the laws of UX. Goes through like all these different things. It's great. The whole thing though here is this aesthetic usability effect. So this whole thing is, oh my goodness, I'm sorry.
No, don't zoom in. It looks harder to read.
Oh, okay. My bad. All right. So users often
No, you're good.
perceive aesthetically pleasing designs as design that's more usable. So this whole thing, when you think
Yes.
about front of the front end and the value that that brings versus not having that, well, it's honestly, people will think that your stuff's better purely just because it's looks better. And
Yes.
part of this is the front end development, right? Because that's ultimately, unless the designer
Yep.
is doing the front end code, it is very much, yeah.
That's real. I and that's another reason why I'm passionate about having cool looking nice designs that not only work well but like look cool because people do have that perception that it works better when it looks better.
Oh yeah.
Even myself. Like and people will forgive weird experiences if they look really nice too.
Mm-hmm. And the opposite is true also. Like if
Yeah.
something is janky, even if it looks nice, if something's janky, or even if something works well. That's what I should say. Not even about
Uh-huh.
looks. Even if it works, it functions properly and functions like super well. If it feels janky, it's gonna erode confidence.
Totally. Which is
Yeah.
sad, but it's true.
Yeah, but I mean, if you think about it though, like, yeah, your product is more than just the code that makes it up. It's also the how people use it, how people experience it. What's that
Mhm.
experience like? So,
Yeah. And that's why it's impossible to separate the user interface from the user experience because it is part of the experience.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Without the user, I mean, you can have backend systems that talk to each other, but if you need a front end or like a user in that loop somewhere,
Yeah.
it has to work for them. So yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I can convince my boss to hire someone who's a more passionate about front end. I don't know. I don't know what the schooling is like. It seems like a lot of them get into it because they like code and they like back end stuff. And they're kind of forced to learn front end. And so they don't really have an eye for it and they don't really care how it looks. They just want it to work and be cool and like the architecture to make sense. Um and it's like they probably know that it is important to a certain degree, but they don't care about it. From my from my experience, they don't care about it as much. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. I wish I knew
But
what.
it's cool that it sounds like they're having classes to teach them how to do front end design. And once you do
That's good.
your own design, you care a little bit more, right? You're like, oh, I
Mm-hmm.
actually do want it to look cool. And I do care that the button is the right color and the right font and the right size. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know.
I don't know. Should we call it right now? Have we kind of worked through what we needed to with this?
Yeah,
in
I
terms
feel
of
like you and
recording
I could
things.
talk for as
Oh,
long as we wanted to,
yeah, for
but
sure. Definitely.
it's up to you. I think an hour is enough to like work with for our first stream. Twitch recommends when you're starting out to go for 2 hours to allow for time
Mm.
for people to trickle in and stuff. I feel like we've hit our peak viewership, which was like 4 people,
Yeah, that's Sour Patch, all right.
which is pretty good. Not
Yeah,
bad.
nice. Yeah.
For our first stream, that's pretty good. Especially because we didn't promote it anywhere at all.
Yeah, very
But
much.
I think we should take this recording and like just watch it over at and then we can do a longer stream in the future.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. Anything about like wave sign off?
I don't know. We should come up with a catchphrase, huh?
Yeah. It's
Design your way to a better life.
like some like all hands in sort of thing, or like the Power Rangers Ninja Turtles like meet up.
Boom. Yeah, I
We
don't
can now
know.
just like, oh yeah, oh I'll do like a little outro for that where it's like Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles handshakes. Have you seen that? Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay.
I
Say it next
do
time.
kind of, but like not super well.
You'll say it next time. So yes. I'm gonna nerd out a little bit and try to figure out a bit more of the setup, and then
Yeah, we should play that when we end. And then we can promote our Discord server if you want to start doing that.
oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Join Discord.
Yeah. I'll share the link. Server settings. Actually, I forget how to do this. There, nope. We're learning, people. Invite people. There it is. Copy. I don't think anyone else is watching, but I'll put that
Nice.
there.
That'll work.
I thought I wrote down all of the things that you wrote for your possible descriptions on the
Oh
Trello
yeah,
board.
it's in Trello, and then I don't know. I was doing some different stuff with them. I like part of me was also thinking like, oh yeah, well then how much of this is like, I don't know, do we throw our names in there, sort of thing? Talk about us. Or just
Yeah.
leave it more as like, no, it's kind of this, and then because I still like the idea of I don't know, actually having some conversations that come up. If there's actually things that people want to chat about too.
Yeah. Well, I made a Discord channel that's like potential topics that we could talk about and suggestions from people.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And I wrote down some of our ideas already.
Yeah, sweet.
But I think what would be cool from this is to get more developers, not just designers,
Mm-hmm. I mean, because a lot of this is, I'm interested in just kind of, I mean, obviously design products, things like this, technology. But like we've talked about this, like philosophy, like cognitive biases, like just cognitive studies, cognitive science. I don't know, yeah, all that stuff. And so loosely related to digital products, to tech, kind of, but like.
Yeah, I don't want it to be too technical all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that would be boring for people
Well,
that aren't technical.
yeah, but I think a lot of like where we can provide the most, like I think about it is if we could provide value, right? I mean, sure, we could have our conversations. We could just talk about design stuff. We could talk about very technical things with design, but a lot of people do that anyway.
True.
And so what I don't know, like what I'm interested in exploring more is just kind of all the other stuff that's kind of related to it. So like obviously design's kind of the vehicle of how we met each other, and so our easy connection for that type of thing. But like, yeah, like I don't know. I like the idea of being able to like just get into a lot of different random stuff too.
Yeah. I think a lot of designers like talking about that,
Yeah.
which is probably why we got into this role
Yeah.
anyway. But
Yeah. But and so I think that's where like most of our value is going to end up coming from is let's have those types of conversations. Obviously, you know, we can get into actual working specific type things and stuff like that for sure. Like, because it all relates. But
for sure.
yep.
Yeah, and
Cool.
I think what's cool about our job is that we explore the why behind everything.
Mm-hmm.
So even these like technical problems of like front end versus a back end, it's like why? Why are they like that? And then we can explore that and apply it to like other things in life and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Relationships, people, interactivity, I don't know. Anything.
Yeah. Sometimes it is that why that deserves exploring more than just the process of it
Yes,
doing. Yeah.
I agree.
Cool. Right on.
All right, let's end it for today.